College athletics are entering a brave new world whereby the gap would appear to be widening between the haves and the have-nots. This season marks the dawning of a 4-team college football playoff. What are the pluses and the minuses of this ever-changing landscape? We'll ask Barry Alvarez next on Sidelines.
It's very simple. Obviously, semifinals, and then the winners play the next week in a championship game. The semifinals rotate among the 6 bowl games. So this year it's a sugar and rose, and next year it goes to orange and cotton, and after that fiesta and peach. And the championship game is a standalone event like the Final Four and Super Bowl were.
Hi again, everyone, and welcome to Sidelines. I'm Mike Lucas from UWBadgers.com. I'm joined by our special guest, Barry Alvarez, the athletic director of the University of Wisconsin, Tom Oates from the Wisconsin State Journal, and Steve Omertrue from ESPN Wisconsin. As a member of the selection committee, what's your level of expectation for how this is all going to play out?
Well, I know there will be criticism. That comes with the territory. Yet I think when it's all said and done, 13 of us will come out with what we think and believe will be the right choices, the right 4 teams, the best 4 teams, and be able to explain why. That's something that hadn't been done in the BCS with computer rankings. No one could stand up at the end of the process and say, this is why we selected these 4. I think we'll be able to do it, and I think we'll do it well.
Are you braced for what's going to happen? The conference, if 4 of the Big 5 get a team in, the 5th conference is going to be screaming. If Boise State goes undefeated, you know, all the little guys will be screaming. I mean, it's just
5, 6, 7, and 8 are all going to be screaming. That's a given, you know. And the thing that I notice when I take a look at the committee, everyone on that committee has been a decision maker. When you're a decision maker and you're a leader, you're criticized all the time. So it's us being able to do our job, feel comfortable with it, have an explanation. We set criteria, and then, you know, we're not going to satisfy everybody. You can't satisfy everybody. Let's think back a few years ago when sports writers, at the end of the season, they voted and you named 2, and the 3rd place team could argue all they want. But, you know, that'll never change.
I'm amazed any of you took the job, that they found 13. But because, how do you do it? I mean, you say you're going to pick. I don't know that you can. It's going to be so close. How do you decide?
Yeah, you know what? We just went through 2 exercises last week in Colorado. We met for 3 days. And I think it was the 08 season where you had probably 8 teams that had a legitimate argument to be in the top 4. There were a lot of one-loss teams that beat Oklahoma, was beaten by Texas. Texas was beaten by Texas Tech. Oklahoma beat Texas Tech, all of them with 1 loss. You had Southern Cal with 1 loss, lost to Oregon State. You had Penn State with 1 loss, lost on the last second field goal to Iowa. Alabama, undefeated throughout the season, loses in the championship game to Florida. Florida had lost during the season. So you take a look at those, and you know, we came up with our answers. You take a look at strength of schedule, you take a look at other factors, and this is without looking at film. And I think some of us on the committee, former coaches, will be able to take a look at film besides just looking at statistics and strength of schedule and head-to-head competition, all those things that come into effect.
Barry, how important is it that you'll have this dialogue in choosing the teams? And moreover, how important is the diversity of the committee? Now, you mentioned yourself, and then you have Tom Osborne, Archie Manning. People with different backgrounds would seem to enhance the selection process.
And we have a couple members who've been on the basketball committee. And, you know, I think that's invaluable. As we're going through our procedure and our selection process, they've had so much to add because they've been through it, they've experienced it before. I think all of that comes into play as far as our discussions and our decision making.
Well, the number one question everyone had is Condoleezza Rice. Let me ask you. Okay. Condoleezza Rice, when she was selected, people raised their eyebrows. Why and what can she bring to the table?
Well, again, she understands football. She grew up in a football household. She's a decision maker. She's a very wise woman. I think she brings a lot to the table. She brings a lot as far as process, decision making, and she knows her football. She was basically she was in charge of athletics at Stanford.
If I'm a coach, I want to know, Barry, what's important? What are you going to decide? So if I'm playing this year, I know because our strength of schedule, we have to go unbeaten. I want to know ahead of time what your rules are so I can factor in what we have to do.
Yeah, we laid those out already. I think if you take a look at scheduling for the future, as soon as, even this year, you see more Power 5 conferences scheduling one another, interconference games, rather than loading your non-conference up with FCS and lower level conference games. I think that was a message we sent loud and clear that strength of schedule is going to be a factor that we'll consider.
But if I go unbeaten and play a weak schedule, I'm going to still be ahead of that team that plays a tougher schedule that loses a game.
Not necessarily.
That's where you come in, right?
That's right.
Not necessarily.
Well, not necessarily. If you have a weak schedule, and you've gone through a weak schedule, and you compare somebody with a one loss in the Southeast Conference, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the PAC, with one loss, and you've gone through a schedule where you haven't played anybody,
Then it comes
and you
up for
think you
discussion.
deserve to be in the championship?
I'm taking a school up from the Power 5 conferences. That there's no way an unbeaten team in those conferences would lose out to a team with one loss. You say it could?
Well, I say there's a possibility, but probably not.
Okay.
If you're undefeated in a Power 5 conference, I would guess that you're going to be in the top 4.
Based on your
That's not,
strength
now
of
it's not
schedule
2
as well.
anymore, it's 4.
Yeah.
How do you see this affecting scheduling so far? Is it, you've scheduled here some huge intersectional games at neutral sites, or home and homes between Power 5 conference teams, or no FCS, or where's the whole future of
We're
scheduling
moving.
going?
The Big Ten is, we're making a move in 2016 to go to 9 conference games. There's even discussions of maybe playing the 10th or playing one of the schools that you're not scheduled. If we're having a hard time with inventory on a schedule, maybe playing another conference school, not counting it towards your conference record. That's a possibility down the road. But we're moving away from scheduling FCS opponents.
You like the idea you're opening this season? Neutral site, Houston against a noted heavyweight from the Southeast
Yeah.
Conference in LSU?
I do like that. I'm excited about it. I think our players and coaches are excited about it. The country's excited about it. When you hear people talk about intersectional matchups to start the season, they mention our game. They'll do that the next 3 years. So I think it really gives motivation to your players in the off season and camp, and you get a chance to find out where you are right away.
Do you put a greater risk, though, in you lose that game, then what do you have to do to make the Final
You're
Four?
watching
Is there
Sidelines.
Well, you just have to keep playing. Every time you go out and play, you take a risk of losing.
Right.
There's a risk of losing. I think if you want to be in the game, you have to play up and play those type games if you want to be.
My time now to make some plays for my team. Usually, the guys that were here, it was James' team. It was those older guys' team. And now I get to lead these guys, and I could show I could do it without Monty or James.
Barry, how much better can Melvin Gordon be this year?
You know what? He's stronger. You can see he's really thickened up. I think he can run with more power. Certainly hasn't lost any speed as I watch him practice. So I think he can take a step, be a step better, be a better football player. I thought last year the difference than previously, he became more patient. He allowed things to happen. He allowed blocks to take place before he accelerated, not trying to force everything.
Is that why he became a better inside runner? I thought the last 5-6 games, he really stepped up as an inside runner. We always knew he could run outside.
Yeah, he can move a pile, but you just can't run in there and stick your head in there. You've got to allow that lineman to get there, allow that block to happen, And I think as time went on, he became more patient and saw things better and became a better runner.
Was the best runner that you coached here in space with explosion Michael Bennett? Is that fair to say? I'm not trying to diminish at all your Heisman Trophy winner. No, don't get me wrong on that. But I'm saying someone.
Michael Bennett ran so fast you heard him when he went by you. You heard that wind when he went by.
The special
but
speed.
I tell you what, Terrell Fletcher wasn't bad in space either. He'd make you miss.
You don't find too many Bennetts with that with the time,
Look,
almost
right here,
Olympic
look at-
speed. He gained separation in a hurry, didn't he?
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, that's world-class sprinter speed, though. I mean, he was a track man, too. I mean,
Well, there's another tailback on this year's team, Corey Clement, it's intrigued a lot of people, Barry, because of his running style, and a little bit different than Melvin Gordon's.
Yeah, he's a slasher and he's powerful. He'll run through things, you know, that I call trash, legs, arms in a hole. He'll run right through that. He's so strong in the lower body. He's thickened up. And last year, I mean, he caught your attention last year as a young kid, and just, you know, he jumped out there.
He's
He
a
wasn't
number 3
intimidated.
tailback.
I tell you what, he's been impressive in camp. He'll have a great year.
had a terrific string of running backs here the last 5, 6, 7 years, one after the other. Do you look historically, and the staffs that have been here, do they look for a certain kind of runner here, or is it just go get the best runner you can get and put him behind that line and see what we can do?
You know what? It all starts if you have a good line, you have a chance to have a good running back. If you look at all of our running backs, they all have their own style. No one ran like Ron Dane. No one was like Fletcher. No one was like Moss. Everyone had their own unique style, and I think Melvin and Corey are the same way. They're totally different runners, and they complement one another.
All kids want to play in the NFL. Running backs seem less important, or the request is different. What would you tell running backs at Wisconsin, or your college running backs, what they need to do to not only play well in college, but increase their chances of playing in the pros?
Well, to play in the pros, to make that step, and they have diminished the value of a running back. You don't see many taken in the first round now. Yet when you get a good one, they'll ride them pretty good. But they better learn how to block, and they better learn how to catch coming out of the backfield, or they're not going to get on the field.
What do you expect out of Gary Anderson year 2?
Well, you know, I thought Gary did a nice job the first year of adapting to the culture that we have here. I think the people really embraced him, really appreciated the type of person he was. I know the team did. I think the fact he's more comfortable right now. I think he's more, not that he wasn't at ease a year ago, he's more comfortable and knows the lay of the land better. I think things become easier for him right now.
If you look at, it's a second year, I think you can logically assume that this team may have more of a stamp or what he's looking for. He may, head in that direction gradually over the years. What would you think that would be on either side of the ball? Maybe a little more, rather than walk in here and just adapt to the talent you had, now he's going to get his own talent.
I think defensively, he wants to pressure. He's more of a pressure type defense, come from a lot of different angles, keep offenses off balance. You saw some of that last year, but we weren't built for that. You need corners. You need a secondary that can play man coverage. You need quicker linemen. I think that's what you see him recruiting to. I think offensively, he wants a quarterback that'll give you be a combination threat, somebody that can hurt you with his legs, as well as throwing the ball.
What's his greatest strength as a coach, and is it the same one you thought when you hired him?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really felt, and when I researched him, the feedback I got from his former players, the guys in the NFL and the coaches that coached for him, all came back with he's a player's coach. He has a good feel for the players. He's demanding, yet he knows when to back off. He knows when to push. And I see that. And I see that that is, I think, his biggest strength is his relationship with the players and his feel for the players.
With so many losses on defense, though, what are some of the challenges now in trying to play up to a level against a team like LSU that no frills offense will attack?
I would guess LSU will come at us and make us stop them running the ball. We've got a much smaller group and very inexperienced group of defensive linemen. We're thin at linebacker, so you know, it's pretty easy what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to come out and line up and knock us off the ball and hang on to the football running it. And then some play action, that type thing. So that's up to our guys to be able to be sturdy enough, and I think that'll be the question going into the
You
game.
think the game's changed a lot in the last few years? We'll take another break here. You're watching Sidelines.
Our game hasn't changed a lot, the way we play, but as you watch college football, it's spread out more. You need, your linebackers now don't need to be thumpers. They need to be guys that can play in space because they're going to be out of the game except on first down.
What we try to do is, you know, not broker anything, but monitor everything to see that people are moving in the direction of creating high-quality schedules, not only for the college football playoff, but also for the fan base and for the athlete and for the presentation of the best possible product on behalf of the Big Ten.
The commissioner mentioned direction. What direction is all of this heading, college athletics?
We're in a very interesting time, and the change has started, and it will continue to change. Rulings from courts are going to determine many of the things that will happen and the direction it will go in college athletics. I think Congress at some point will have to step in and have some guidelines on our direction. So very interesting time. But you know, even feeding your players, where they took all restrictions off, now you can have training table, you can feed which only makes sense. You've got walk-ons, now they can eat training table. We're gonna feed all 900 plus of our athletes breakfast every day, and our top 6 sports will have training table. Besides that, breakfast, and every weight room will be supplemented with a rechargeable different food to help recharge our athletes.
Of all the things that are going down right now, player rights, autonomy for the 5 conferences, what's going to change this, you know, Congress and courts being involved? What's going to change this the most?
How far you go as far as, you know, most of the decisions are made for player welfare. And we have to do more for our players. And how much more? You know, you don't want it to turn into the Wild West, where you're bidding on players, you're paying stipends, players have sponsors. It turned it into pro football. So,
But can you have a level playing field?
not when you do that. So there have to be some type of restrictions to keep amateur sports at that level and still have college athletics. We have to have some restrictions. It just can't be wide open and do whatever you can afford to do. You can't do that. I don't believe that it would totally break up. The things that we're doing today would college football and college athletics as we know them today would disappear.
Doesn't it all lead to the premise that this elite group of 5 conferences are going to be college football or college sports, because so many schools are just not going to be capable of paying the costs which these conferences are because of the league TV networks and everything?
Well, everyone else is still going to play college football. You know, they may not be at the same level. You may not be able to recruit at the same level, but you're still going to have participation, and athletes are going to be able to go to college, get a degree, or have an opportunity to get a degree, and play intercollegiate athletics. I'm just afraid, and I hope that by doing this, to try to keep up, that some places don't end up cutting a lot of sports and eliminating opportunity for other people in different sports.
Well, that phrase, cost of attendance, is a little bit deceiving at times. I don't know what that totally means. Do you?
It means something different, a different number for every school. I know our league, our financial aid directors are to meet in the future to come up with a formula. There is a formula out there, but one that's consistent in some
We need to take
way.
another break. You're watching Sidelines.
That it doesn't turn into a recruiting tool. You know, the initial cost of attendance, as you look at it, goes from $1,200 at one Big Ten, the low of $1,200 in one Big Ten school to $4,900 in another school. That ends up.
You can watch a podcast version of our show by going to channel3000.com. If you have a question for us, go to Sidelines at channel3000.com or Sidelines on Facebook. And if we like the question, you got an opportunity, a chance to win a $25 gift certificate to Christie's Landing on the beautiful shores of Lake Waupisa. This week's question's timely. Timely indeed. Did Barry Alvarez enjoy working for Hayden Fry? And we were sent a photo as well, so it goes beyond. Oh, look at that. Who's that young fella on the right? Is that you, Bear?
That is me.
And is he yelling at you?
I think he is yelling at me.
Did he yell at you a lot?
Hayden didn't understand I signaled the defenses, so he didn't understand them all the time.
Was that the problem? He was all offense, wasn't he?
He was all offense. He didn't know what we were doing on defense. But I tell you what, that was a great staff that he had, and I did enjoy working for Hayden Fry. He gave me an opportunity to leave, to get into college coaching. I'll always be indebted to him for that. I think all of us on his staff who went on to become head coaches probably used a lot of his organizational skills as far as managing your staff, because he came off as a kind of a flim-flam, loosey-goosey, but he was strict. He was very strict.
Is that? Do you think? Did you pattern the program here after what you learned at Iowa more, or your experience at Nebraska, or Notre Dame, or a combination of all the above?
Combination. A lot of the staff organization meetings, etc. I took some from Hayden Fry, some from Lou Holtz, how I ran practice, unorganized practice, more from Holtz, and a lot from what we did at Nebraska, some of my basic football beliefs from Nebraska, but a little bit from all three.
Were you all good when you came, or because the list of coaches in the group is incredible?